What's up, everyone? Dalton Hopkins with Frontstretch.com, and I am flanked to my right tonight by Mr. Steven Stumpf himself. And we just got done with, I guess, a pretty uneventful race here at Kansas Speedway. But let's talk. Let's see what we can talk about. What we can talk about. So let's talk about the winner, Denny Hamlin. Obviously, getting in that contact with Kyle Larson at the last lap there. You talked to Denny after the race, or you got to hear some of the quotes from Denny Hamlin in the media center. What exactly, from his viewpoint, what did the contact with he and Larson, what was that in his words?
It was a close battle between the two. Obviously, Denny had been tracking down Larson for the last 25 laps or so. He got close several times side by side. Then the final lap, they were just kind of nose to tail. Larson may have gotten loose, and then they just kind of made contact together out of turn two. Obviously, Denny said, it was partially racing. He also said that he wished it wouldn't have been contact. And he also said that, if he was on the other side with Larson, he understand if he would be frustrated. But for Denny, it's his fourth win at Kansas, which breaks previously what was a five-way tie for the most wins at Kansas with 3. He now stands alone with 4. He also has his 49th win, which ties Tony Stewart, and he's only 1 away from 50, which I believe he'd be the 15th driver to achieve.
Yeah, and of course, I actually got to catch up with Larson after the race, and Larson, he wasn't as upset, I think, as a lot of people expected him to be, saying things along the lines of, he has not seen the replay yet, so he really can't make a judgment call. I think that's pretty mature of him to think that, but not exactly the debacle that we were expecting out of that. You look like you're about to say something.
Yeah, also, if you want to, there's also, a great crowd on hand, even with the hot weather today. And when Denny got out of the car and started celebrating, that was like the most jeers I've ever seen. So there's obviously several sides to the story, only 2 drivers, but the crowd obviously gave their opinion on what happened. And also Denny said that he wasn't particularly surprised about the reaction, also because he knows that, Larson's a little bit more popular than he is.
Yeah, that was. I think that was the loudest collection of boos that I have ever heard, like at a racetrack before. That was like deafening. But so going forward, it doesn't look like there's going to be anything in between those two. It doesn't look like it's really going to be any bad blood. But what does look like it's going to be some bad blood was another altercation we almost missed on pit road between Noah Gragson and Ross Chastain. Noah, of course, approaching Ross Chastain after the contact on the racetrack and voicing his displeasure through words, and then Ross Chastain voicing his displeasure through his fists. So let's talk about that. You talked to Noah Gragson afterwards. What did he have to say? What was going on in his viewpoint?
So the incident in question happened about 60 to go. I don't believe the two actually made contact, but Ross kind of ran him kind of wide out of turn 4, and then Gragson got in the wall. He obviously wasn't very happy immediately after it happened. And then right after the race, he waited. He walked right down to Ross's pit stall where he had parked because he finished 5th for the media. They started talking. Then Noah grabbed him, and then Ross just got a clean punch on his face. If he was a baseball player, he'd be batting 1,000 today. But obviously, as you know, Noah wasn't very happy, saying about how Ross is always, the one running into people. Everyone races with respect but him. And also about how, despite, most of the garage area being up in arms about him, no one, in his words, no one has the balls to, go get him. So, obviously, not good, not fireworks between the two. And if I had to guess, I don't think this is the last of the two either.
I don't think it is. I mean, think about who we're dealing with here. We're dealing with Ross Chastain and Noah Gragson, two of the most controversial subjects in the sport right now, I like to think. And, of course, I got to catch up with Ross Chastain after the race as well. After he climbed out of his hauler, he darted straight to his hauler after what happened on pit road. And he came out very tight-lipped about it, didn't really mention anything that Noah and he said to each other. He kept saying, that's between Noah Gragson and myself. Of course, you can probably find a video on there and get a little bit more in depth about what exactly they said to each other. But Ross, you have to wonder, this is just another chapter in the Ross Chastain book, on the Ross Chastain book of calamity. This is yet another one that we've seen, incident where he gets involved in the driver, a lot of controversy going on. So you have to wonder, does Noah Gragson have a point there in saying that who has the balls, I'm quoting here, to go and get him? So it's it's kind of up in the air with that. But let's go talk about the race itself, though. Let's talk about some of the other things that occurred. On top of the fact all of that happened at the end of the race, most lead changes at Kansas Speedway history. Steven, tell us about some of the statistics that went on this race. Some people are calling it the best race at Kansas ever.
Yeah, 37 lead changes. The previous record was 26 in 2009, so we completely shattered that mark today. Fox also came on the broadcast to say that in a 400-mile race at a 1.5-mile track, it was the most lead changes ever. So, it was obviously the hot temperatures led to a lot of slipping and sliding. It seemed like there was action and battles out front all day. Passing seemed to be great. I mean, start of the race, middle of the race, there was just several incredible battles throughout the day. I mean, from what I saw, and I hope a lot of people feel the same way, that was a blast from start to finish.
Yeah, I have to agree. I think I would believe that that's probably the best race of the year so far. I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, I'd agree there too. I mean, almost flawless.
Yeah, almost. And there was also, of course, some of the battle. I mean, we saw Toyota dominate early on in the race. They had all 6 cars in the top 6, I think, at one point. It was a short amount of time, but they also had all 6 cars in the top 7 for a lot of the time at the beginning in the first stage. Tell me about that. What did you think about the Toyota dominance, and where exactly did it all go wrong there?
So, I mean, Toyota looked great, obviously, at the start, but it's also worth noting that, Hendrick and Chevrolet, they were the best players, and they just had a lot of problems at the start. Chase Elliott didn't qualify well. It took a lot of time for him to get to the front. Byron started out front, but then he had that speeding penalty, then he hit the wall, and so he went from the front to the back and back to the front. He came back to finish a solid third, despite being 2 laps down for a lot of the race. And then Larson, obviously, he was battling for the lead on lap 5 when Kyler Reddick accidentally got into him and spun him out. Obviously, it had been, Larson's been quite a few incidents not of his doing, but, he didn't lose his temper, he didn't lose his patience. He calmly picked his way back to the field. He led the most laps, and, he was a lot of Chevrolet was right there at the end. But as we all saw, Hamlin was right there too.
You mentioned Larson coming back to the front after an incident. William Byron came back to the front. I mean, I love the way you described it. Fox showed that statistic, that graphic where it was the running position from start to finish, and you called it the Grand Canyon. It was like he was way up at the front, and then he had that incident, and then he came back to the front at the end, finishing third. Hendrick Motorsports coming back and recovering from everything that occurred with them. What does that mean for this team? I mean, what do you make of this?
I mean, obviously, it has to be somewhat frustrating to not come away with a win, especially how the final lap went down. I'm sure they're not going to be happy about it, but they're a resilient team, and that's why they've been the team to beat this year so far. Even with a lot of troubles, they just came back and they were right there at the end. And from what I've seen, obviously Toyota is looking pretty good now. They've won the last 2 races, but Hendrick's still top dog until Toyota or someone else says otherwise.
Well, still coming up short, though, finishing second and third. And Toyota, of course, getting another win here at Kansas. Denny Hamlin, a third win if you count his wins as an owner driver, count his wins as an owner, but his 2 last year. But Denny Hamlin winning today, Chevrolet finishing second and third with Larson and Byron. That should about wrap it up for today. One amazing race at Kansas. Steven, do you have any final thoughts?
Las Vegas kind of drew some criticism, 1.5-mile tracks, but I'd have to check the weather, but obviously it was a hot day, but if that's the kind of racing we saw, I mean, we need to get this everywhere. That's all I'm going to say. The next-gen car, it's had some issues, especially, criticism of intermediates, but if it has a race like today, even with the Gen 6, I don't think I can remember a race this good in intermediate in a long time.
The next-gen car at Kansas once again does not disappoint. Next week, we go to Darlington Raceway for Throwback Weekend. If you thought this race was good, I cannot wait to see what next weekend is like. From Dalton Hopkins, Steven Stumpf with Frontstretch.com, signing off for the weekend. Thanks for staying tuned, and check us out next weekend when we head to Darlington Raceway.
Hi, this is Steven Stumpf. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Check out the 2 videos beside me, and for more racing content, visit Frontstretch.com.